I'm the voice of San Diego, Friday 5, live at 5. I forgot my beautiful, nice mic. Horrible, so hopefully this is okay. Wanted to start with a story, hopefully to lift your spirits as it's lifted mine all week long. So I'm coaching softball. I'm the manager of an 8-year-old softball group. They're great. You know, it's great to just bark orders at people and not have stubborn journalists arguing with me all the time, stuff like that. So I'm loving it. I'm having a great time with this softball team. We have a situation develops at our game the other night. Beautiful day. Shadows are long. It's the last inning. We're at the bottom half of the inning. We're down 0-2. My best hitter gets up first at bat. She's up first in the inning. She's best hitter, best athlete on the field. I think she's just great. She gets lined up. We have a rule in this league that if the pitcher strikes the batter with the ball, then they can either take first base or they can keep batting, because it happens a lot. They're just learning how to pitch, so it happens a lot. So you don't want to just do it all the time. But if they are, if it looks like they can't go on, like they get the base. Now, so she's up there, just gets drilled in the back, just drilled so hard, and I was like, oh no. So I go out, I go check on her, and I'm like, are you all right? And she got tears, she's upset. It was a bad one. And I was like, well, this is probably where I should invoke the rule of like she can go to first. And so I nodded to the other coach who was nearby. I was like, should she go? And he's like, yeah. But then the other coach, the main coach, came trotting in, and he's like, no. Our girls have gotten hit too. We didn't never take first base. What's going on? Don't do that. And I wasn't too perfectly sure about the rules. So I was like, I don't know. All right, fine. So I waved her back, and she comes back, and I was like, you okay? Do you think you could bat? And she goes, yeah, I can do this. She gets back up. Next pitch. Boom. Nails it. Wasn't a huge hit, but it was enough. She turns it into a home run, comes running in, scores the run. Next next one out, 2 batters go up, also hit. We got second and third. My daughter gets up, bam, knocks them both in. We win the game. Best sporting moment I have seen in years. I was so stoked. Just a second, I have to tell somebody. So I gotta say, the world is starting to get back to normal, or at least a version of what we loved. You know, losing softball in the fall or in the spring last year was one of the hardest parts about what happened. And I'd love to hear from you. What have been some of the cool things you've seen happen? Maybe you went out, maybe anything like that. We'd love to hear from you about that. I also wanted to give an RIP to the great Beverly Cleary. Oh my gosh. I read everything. Ramona, Ralph S. Mouse, all of that. I was reading Ralph S. Mouse a few years ago to my son, and I came across this passage. It was pretty good. I don't know how I didn't pick it up when I was little. So they were talking about, just to say, they were talking about how in the school is dilapidated, where Ralph, his friend, the boy, had taken him to school, and the school was all falling apart. And they said, Mr. Crossman said that because people voted for Proposition 13 and taxes had been cut, the school district couldn't afford an exterminator for the mouse problem that he had witnessed. sneaky propagandist Beverly Cleary. Anyway, R.I.P. What a giant, what a life. I hope I can live a tiny fraction of that kind of contribution. So, all right, let's get into this. Number one is here. All right, let's get into this. The big news of the week for our concern was our own Cinty Marten, San Diego Unified Superintendent Cinty Marten, was in D.C., sitting, getting grilled by senators as she ascends to the position of Deputy Secretary of Education for San Diego, or for the country. So big hearing. A lot of us paid attention. One of the great parts about it was we got to hear from her and hear. I haven't seen her face tough questions in years. So it was a great opportunity to hear her on some of these topics. So we're going to get into school reopening on the next one, but let's go into one area. Senator Murkowski from Alaska brought up the concern about some of the reporting that us and others have done about the achievement gap, about how well people of color perform in San Diego Unified versus white students, and what she's done to deal with that. Here was Senator Murkowski on that.
According to the Lincoln Cluster report released January 29 of this year, 62% of Black students can neither read nor write on grade level, and 72% do not perform at grade level in mathematics. The report also states that for the 2018-2019 school year, 38% of Black students were proficient in English language arts, while 76% of white students were proficient. In math, 28% of Black students were proficient, 70% of white students were. So you've got a pretty considerable achievement gap, according to this report, of 38 and 42 points, respectively. Can you tell us, for the committee, what you have done during your tenure as superintendent to address these gaps?
So she was ready with an answer. That again, that was Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska.
Chicago Tribune said that in 2019, addressing the achievement gap, that San Diego Unified is one of the positive outliers when it comes to combating the racial achievement gap. That was from an article in 2019. And the reason why they said that, I believe, is because of our results. When I started in 2013, our 8th graders were achieving at average across the country, looking at the NAEP scores amongst the big city districts. And then in 2019, we were first in the nation and in reading, and second in the nation in math. And so these achievement gaps have been reduced between Black and white students by 7 points in math, and between Latinx students and white students by 7 points in reading.
So I think that there's sort of two truths there. She can say, I think legitimately, that there is that as a district, comparable district with other major urban school districts, that she has done really well, that there is a comparison way of proving she stands out on that. I think, or that the district stands out on that. I think what's really hard about that, though, is being the best in that category is still really bad. It's not a great situation when 72% of Black students are not proficient in math. That is we should feel an urgency about that constantly. And the San Diego Unified's entire approach to that challenge was to invest and focus on neighborhood school communities, on the school communities, on accountability within school communities, on high quality, high performance, and supportive measures for employee performance improvement and teaching performance improvement, and services within school communities that can help that. And I think it's worth noting that those communities are gone right now. They are gone. There is a lot being done online, sort of keeping hope alive in the meantime that they might come back. But we are in the urgency. I just don't feel the urgency. It's been very hard to ever get San Diego Unified to acknowledge that there needs to be a community-wide sense of crisis. The way there would be a community-wide sense of crisis if this was the performance and outcomes in other parts of the city. And so I think we're going to keep banging that drum no matter who's in charge, and continue to tell those stories. But the second issue that came up, obviously, quite a bit in this hearing was the question of school reopenings. Let's go to that, number 2. Okay, so here's how it was framed a couple of times. So two different senators brought it up. Here was Senator Susan Collins from Maine.
In California, the physician who is the director of COVID response from the University of California in San Francisco said that with universal masking, school transmissions will remain close to zero. In retrospect, do you think you were too slow to open up? I know you've announced an April date for reopening, but to open up the schools, given not only the loss of learning, but the emotional and behavioral toll.
So here was
as the science was ever evolving. And as it evolved, we evolved in our implementation and our path forward. And I'm happy to say where we are now is being able to open on April 12th with all of the mitigations that we put in place, knowing that things had changed along the way. This is the right time for us to open, and the case rates in our community in San Diego, the large urban core, being what they were.
So she brought up a lot that we were opening April 12th, and I think a lot of people have talked about opening coming April 12th, but it's important to remember, I know that some parents do, but we still have no idea what that's going to look like. It could be 2 days, could be 4 days, and that's kind of a big difference and kind of a significant issue. But more importantly, we still have not heard anything about what circumstances would need to be in place to open full-time in the fall. Nothing. They've said that they will not do a hybrid in the fall, that the teachers got an agreement that they won't do hybrid learning, but they have not said that it would be full-time. They have not said that that's something that they can accommodate. So I don't know, she can say that we're opening April 12th, and there will be kids in classrooms April 12th more than there have been, but it is a big difference between 2 days and 4 days, and a lot of people could use some clarity on that. And it makes a big difference whether it's 2 or 4. That's a big gap. So I know that some folks have heard. If you have heard how many days your kids are going back, I would love to hear from you. I've heard McKinley Elementary, for example, is still trying to figure it out. 5th and 4th graders were only going back 2, but K through 3 was still up in the air. I'm not sure how that is coming together. So I would like to hear from you. Did you hear yet from your school about what is coming, what is not? I think I would like to try to gather some of that. So, all right. So that was that. The big driver of this decision about whether schools can be open and whether they can accommodate for just 4 days per week is this question of the distance. The union's agreement with the school district is that they are going to keep 6 feet of distance between students, regardless of the measures that have been taken to clean and purify and ventilate the air. So that means that if you can't fit all the kids that want to come back in, then it goes all the way down from 4 days to 2 days that they can be back in the classroom, again, which is a significant difference. And a lot of us are still waiting for clarity on that. Now, I will give a shout out, as I have, to San Diego Unified for embracing all of these efforts to ventilate, clean the air. And, in our own school, we've heard a lot, and we got to see some of the measures, filters within the room, windows going to be open. They only did one carbon dioxide meter, so I don't know how they're going to divvy that out. Maybe just like carry it around and check it. But yeah, the CDC said 3 is okay. Well, the CDC thing came out like the day after San Diego Unified made that deal with the teachers union, and they weren't going to renegotiate that. So we'll see what happens. But again, I think it's one thing about 2 versus 4 one thing about 2 versus 4 feet or days, but it's another to about fall. I gotta get some clarity about fall. My family's gonna go crazy. It's one thing again too to also say like we don't know what the circumstances are gonna be in the fall, but that's fine. But can you lay out, now that we know so much about the science, can you lay out what circumstances need to be in place so that we can fully reopen it in the fall? I think that's what I would like to see. They have hundreds of CO2 meter. Okay, well, yeah, our school only got one. So hopefully they can get more into the different schools so they can measure that. La Jolla Country Day has a cool deal where they have these meters within every classroom, and the principal and any parent and students even can check the CO2 levels in each classroom to make sure that the air is being turned over. Again, they don't care about the particular concentration of CO2, but CO2 measures the turnover of the air. And so that's a good way to make sure the ventilation is happening. Again, do you have any kids? Do you know how many days they're going back? Are you a teacher? Do you know how many days you're going back, or what's happening in your school district? I think Cinty Marten's deserving, not perfect for sure, but a good person who actually works hard. She cares deeply about the students. There's no question about that. I'm sure Cinty Marten, okay. All right, well, so those are the big things. Oh, I wanted to bring up one other, there was another focus. Here was Mitt Romney's take on the whole situation.
Are you seeing a difference in infection rate in the places where schools are open versus those where schools are not open?
In the surrounding community?
Correct.
I don't believe so, no.
Help me understand then why it is that we continue to have so many schools closed, why we have not opened our schools, because that's the experience that, as we've looked around the world at countries that have kept schools open versus those that have not, there doesn't appear to be a significant difference in infection in the community or among the students or teachers, and yet the cost to children in learning of not having schools open is so overwhelming that I can't understand why it would be that we would not be insisting that schools be open and should have been open a long time ago. How is it that even to this day, that even in the San Diego region, that there are schools not open yet? I also seen research that says we're better to have schools open entirely as opposed to a hybrid system, on a couple of days, off a couple of days, because the back and forth means more exposure to more people. Being full-time school would be less exposure. So I'm wondering why it is we still have schools closed in your district and around the country, given the fact that scientific data doesn't suggest that there's an additional risk for teachers or students or the community by having them open.
Thank you, Senator. This, as you know, is a complex topic, and each school, each leader, each system leader has had to make their best decisions given the evidence and the circumstances and the resources that they have locally to make a safe path forward.
So that's how that went. I did hear from a couple of you. Let's check it out. Jefferson, going back 4 days. Congratulations. That's great for you. Again, we'd like to hear that. Here's another one. One might be able to look at the data for San Diego to answer that. Yeah, that's true about which schools have been open and whether it's spread. All right. Yes, that is a Pure Leaf tea, Adriana. Got to go to 7-Eleven. I'm in the office. Feels like normal. All right, let us go to, pull this up. Number 3. All right, our Kayla Jimenez did a great piece this week about some of the students who, after all this time, 1 year into this pandemic, still don't have access to the internet. It's bananas. I do not understand why this is still a thing, but check it out. Kayla Jimenez at voicesandiego.org. She found that 82,000 families are still without access to reliable internet, and it has not changed in any significant way. There are some cities that have plans to address this but can't fund them, and there are other cities that do not even have plans to fund. It's obviously a market failure, or the market would have addressed this. And she's going to be chasing a lot of angles too, as well as why some of these free plans that we had heard about didn't really deliver secure internet for a lot of people. Again, the situation for people trying to log on is just abhorrent. Part of the weird thing about all this school stuff is, like, without the internet, they never would have let schools be closed. You know what I mean? Like, schools would have been considered an essential service. Everything else may have closed, but schools would have been considered an essential service that you can't close. Like, a lot of countries close everything but schools. But here, we thought, well, I can just get on the internet. And we just completely forgot the thousands, the tens of thousands of families who do not have reliable access to the internet. And the market has not delivered a solution to it. And the governments don't care. I'm glad she's kept that focus up. Great. Check out that piece, invoicesandiego.org. Let me check out some of your questions. All right, good. Number 3. All right, Andy Keats did a piece this week about the sports arena. You might remember, let's do a rehash. The sports arena area is land owned by the city of San Diego. The sports arena, of course, is a facility owned by the city of San Diego. Last year, voters decided to allow the entire area of Midway, not just the sports arena land, the entire area to be built higher than 30 feet in contrast to the coastal height limit in the rest of the west of I-5 areas. So it allowed this plan that the former mayor came up with Brookfield Properties to redevelop that sports arena land. Now, this week, our Andrew Keats found out that there is something holding up a deal with Brookfield Properties, at least the outlines of how many homes they would build, what other things they would build, what parks, what kind of changes or rebuilding of the sports arena they would do. All of that's being held up by changes to the Surplus Lands Act in the state government. Now, basically, if the city is going to ever sell land, before it sells land, it has to go ask other local governments if they want to buy it before the city sells it. Same thing with affordable housing developers. These cities have to at least ask affordable housing developers if they want to do the land. Now, that's when they sell it. What has happened, as Andy Keats found, is that the state is now interpreting that law to also mean leases. So if they do lease all this land out to home builders or others for that area, then they actually may have to go through that same process, which could be a big curveball to this experience, but at the very least may ensure that at least 15% of the units that those developers build in that area, and they're looking at about 2,100 units, could be, what is that, 300 or 400 units, could be reserved for low-income families. So not a huge setback for the development, but not an easy one to resolve. And so that's what the city is saying is delaying any progress on that project. Check out his story at voicesofsandiego.org. Any questions? All right, good. Number 5. All right, our intern Sofia Mejias Pasco did a wonderful story recently about UC San Diego and its decision recently to raise rents that it charges its graduate students and researchers, that it pays a stipend to be on campus, to live and to do their work. Massive increases to the rents. Listen to this one. The highest spike in rent is UC San Diego's Mesa Apartments, a housing complex designed largely for students with young children. The price for a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment will jump from $1,455 to $2,700 per month, an 85% increase for new residents this summer in Mesa Nueva. Rent for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath unit will go up by 70%, $1,200 to $2,100. Again, this is for new residents, but the university, as some of them point out, the university knows how much they pay them, and that big of an increase is not going to be easy for many of them to absorb. So check that out. Sofia Mejias Pasco did great reporting, talked to a lot of different people about the market, about the rate increase, and about the situation of housing for some of those folks. So great, a lot of stories this week up our alley. What do you want to know? Anything about the pandemic or about the situation or about schools reopening? What has been your experience? Are you a teacher? Are you a scientist? Are you a student? Are you a parent? What are you hearing about schools going back? I think we're expecting an email from our principal soon about whether we're going back full time or 4 days at least. Schools are a big deal. And, you see somebody like Kevin Faulkner running for governor, and he's like, oh, we should have had schools open. We're the last in schools. You can't just take our pain and our energy and just like own it now, dude. You didn't care at all last year. And, this is something a lot of us have been talking about now for a year, since the very beginning. And I'll never forget walking away from the school when it closed and just realized like it can close fast, but opening it back up is going to be so hard. So I'm going to keep following it deeply and still understand. And we will follow it from there. Let's check out some of these comments. They've postponed the race so it only affects students entering in 2022. Oh, that's good to hear. Thank you. Any news on the new superintendent search? No, I just know the outlines that a lot of people have. This is for San Diego Unified. So there are, 24 community representatives now on the board, on this advisory group that will eventually look through the applicants for the job and then recommend 10 to the school board. So that'll be in the summer after they formulate the job posting, after they do town halls, listening to people about what they want. In the meantime, assuming, as I think is right, that Cinty Marten will take that post at the Department of Education, that means that Lamont Jackson will be the superintendent. He's an area superintendent now. It seems like an interesting guy, a good guy. We'll see if he's interested in talking soon, and we'll have a big conversation about some of these issues. But yeah, so the process will be, they specifically refuse to hire a search firm to find people who might want to apply. So they're going to just take, I guess, passive applicants for the position. And then that advisory group will recommend 10 to be interviewed. The school board will decide what 3 will be decided on from there. So look, I think I think if I were to, look deep in the crystal ball, Lamont Jackson probably got a great shot of getting it. I was looking through the list of people who have representatives on that advisory group, and the police officers union has a representative, the superintendent or the supervisors, county supervisors have a representative. Oh, I actually have it up here. The community college district has, the Charter Schools Association has somebody. Then they added 5 groups: the Asian Pacific Islander Initiative, the Association of African American Educators, the Gifted and Talented Parents, Latino Advisory Committee, Building Trades Council. There's a few unions represented on there. Ed Abeda, I know Ed from the University of San Diego, or UC San Diego, excuse me. And then of course the teachers union and others. So it'd be really interesting. I don't know why the police officers union is represented there, the Police Officers Association. I guess if you're a union in the district, you get to be represented in this discussion. So to be clear, it's the Police Officers Association for San Diego Unified, for the police officers in the school district. So a workforce partnership has a voice, all those. So actually, I'll post the link if you want. It goes through all of these things. I was interested in it today too. Let's see if that works. Boom, boom. Yeah, look at that. All right. Well, wish me luck. We got another softball game this weekend. We're gonna represent. I think got a good group. I thought it would be scary to have to do something else because I have a busy job and family and everything, but it's actually been a nice outlet to, again, it's really nice to just bark orders at people and just be like, you do this, you do this, you do this. Yes, sir. Yes, coach. Good stuff. All right. Have a good weekend. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Padres coming back next week. Enjoy the spring break safely with ventilation and masks. Let's keep the surge from happening, and we'll get schools open. Go Padres. Cheers, guys.